Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, everyone? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Michael Toussaint, aka Mike. Dog handler at Dev Group, 21 and a half years of service, senior chief petty officer retired. He's the founder of Setpoint K9 Training located in South Texas. You can catch him on Facebook and Instagram, and to take a deeper dive, go check out setpointk9.com. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Super excited about this. So I always kick it off with something completely the opposite direction of where we're going to go. But I want to know, and a lot of our listeners love to hear, guys like you, tier one operators, what is it like to transition, and how are you doing with your transition out of service?
Well, so that's a double-pronged, hard, long answer, right? I mean, transitioning was I think we talked about it briefly before, it was horrible. Like leaving the environment that I was in my last several years in the military to reality, being a civilian and then stepping onto a law enforcement position as well. I mean, it was very humbling. And it was hard to adjust to the difference in the lack of loyalty and I guess brotherhood of being, as you know, I mean, one thing you hold near and dear, and then you step out of it and now you're in HEB complaining about the lines too, right? I mean, it's just, it was very, very surreal. And even though it's been, 15 years, almost 14 years, it still is a constant thing. So, I mean, I know the struggle is real for people that are getting out, the transitioning, some are having a harder time than others. For me, I had a lot of other, contributing variables that made it a little bit more challenging, a failing divorce, marriage, whatever. I mean, just life stuff, right? I mean, and it wasn't fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard very few people say that transition for them was easy. But what I've realized is that it may be easy for some guys because they've got this awesome plan and they're executing on the plan, getting out, moving right into their next deal, but they're not giving themselves time to breathe. And it ends up hitting those cats later on during their new careers where they're like, man, I'm losing my shit now. Right. And it's all because they didn't actually de-escalate. But for the most part, I always say people in the SEAL teams, we are in this weird bubble where you may be out in a bar with civilians and you're a human on this earth, but you're just so, behind the radar that you don't necessarily feel like you're part of the community. And therefore, when you get out and you're like, now I actually am in this community, but these are not necessarily my people and they don't get me. Right. And so
it's
you're like,
it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Well, I mean, we have obviously a mutual friend in Will Chesney who is just an incredible guy. He's been on the show before. And I really want to get into, obviously, a dog handler your entire career, operating at a tier one level with Dev Group, and now training dogs. I want to get into what you're doing with canines. Why did you start this company? Tell us a little bit about the founding of it, and then what you're aiming to, what do you do?
Okay, so I started the company in the latter part of last year. Prior to that, I was the director of operations for a different dog training company. I learned a lot of things, and I'm very familiar with the dog world. And the dog world is a very tumultuous, drama-filled environment. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's like constant high school drama, gossip, and that's the negative part of the dog world. It's a small community, so to speak, so that, everybody knows of everybody or has heard of everybody. And the problem is everybody thinks that their way is the best way and everybody else is stupid. And that's not the truth, right? I mean, that's what I love about dogs, because there is no one way that's going to be the same, right? No one dog. You can't take one application and do it the same thing to every dog and expect the same result. It isn't going to happen that way. You have to be able to problem solve, and then, take the dog's drive, lack of drive, whatever, social issues. So that company went under, and I was forced with a decision. Okay, now I'm single, I'm debt free. Do I go live on the beach in Costa Rica? Because that was like plan A. Like that was plan A. And also, okay, well, then I'll be the fat pervert on the beach for how long? Until that wears off. So then I started talking to some of the guys that I had around me, and a lot of people were like, "Man, you could really do something if you start something, and then we'll be right there with you." And so I got a really good group around me of core guys that I trust, and taught me into it. And it's like, okay, so I was thinking of, I don't know anything about business. I didn't know anything. I mean, I could spell LLC, and that's about as far as it went. So, I did a little research, got it going, and I came up with the name Setpoint because, as the set point is meaningful to me because that's your last stage of comfort. Like you have to be ready for the show from that point forward. Because if you're not, you're going to pay the man, and hopefully not too gravely, right? I mean, so to me represents like just being ready for whatever. And that's also a commitment that me and the people that are doing this together have with our customers. We try to build good relations, solid relationships, not just monetary transactions. We like to be more personal with the people. So I don't have any aspirations to become this huge police dog vendor or any of that. That's not what I'm aspiring to do. I'm currently servicing a sheriff's department in New Mexico. Their quarterly training, all the dogs, uh, some protection dogs with civilians out in the population. I just took on a service dog customer to try to help out with a medical need. Service dogs hasn't been my area of expertise. I have somebody on my team that's is an expert in that area. So it's just it could be another branch that I had not initially intended. Like it wasn't my the opportunity presented itself. I wanted to get involved, and here we are. And I'll feel good about it once it's done. Really, I'll feel good to know that I may have helped this particular girl out. But so training, law enforcement, providing dogs. I have a dog right now that I'm trying to train up to the level at which we work dogs. At night on lasers, clearances, all the real deal, and be able to take that dog and maybe deliver that dog to tactical teams. And we're bypassing entry level stuff. I wanted just to focus on the tactical teams because I learned, as a lot of people know my story, of how important that asset can be. That furry um, flashbang, buys you that split second needed, to be here talking about it, and then if you don't train it, the deal, man. Things happen so quick, So that's what I hope to. That's the main thing I hope to gain, to be able to educate some of the people out there that are hopefully never, but probably will be. Some of them get stuck in that shitty situation, and then have that asset and know how to use it, and given that being prepared for that, that's my initial main reason for starting it was that sole reason, to try to help people that have to go out there and fight the fight. And if they encounter that last resort, worst case scenario, they have another tool in their toolbox that know how to properly utilize it. And I hate that because it means you're sacrificing your dog, your partner, but I mean, they're doing what they love to do is please you, and we would do the same for our brothers, right? I mean, it's, it makes perfect sense to me. So, and I'm passionate about it. And that's the reason why I started the company. And that's the reason that I want to set point.
Well, I love the name of it 100%. Like you said, it's the last moment of comfortability, and it's so true. I've never thought about it in that context, and that's amazing. And it just speaks to what you're doing here. The other side to it is when you're training, you're not just training the dog to be at a certain level of proficiency, but you also have to train the handler. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And sometimes the latter is the most difficult part. The human part of it is usually the more challenging one, to get
Oh,
them
I'm
and
sure.
timing wise, understanding the importance of certain things. And, the dogs is kind of a pure relationship. Either they're going to bite you or not, either you can be successful with them or not, but, it's not a maybe. There's not a maybe. It's either you are or you're not. With the humans, it's a little more challenging. But yes, you're right. It is equally, if not more important, to get the humans trained up.
I remember when we had our first dog handler come to our platoon, and he was, we started doing some of the bite work with him. He's like, "You want to get in the suit today?" I was like, "No, I don't, but whatever you need though." And so the first time that I was in the suit and I was inside a Connex box and I can hear the pitter patter come around the corner, and all of a sudden I see the dog and it sees me in the suit and just immediately ears, and then it just looks at me and it's like fight and attack, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Lift my arm up and it goes right for me, and just to see the level of aggression that the dog had when we got done with that training day, I was like, these animals are way stronger and way gnarlier than we are. Like, that was absolutely insane. And how he had to choke the dog off the bite just to get him off of me. I'm like,
Yeah,
man, a whole new respect for the animal. And then, of course, him hanging out with the team all the time, getting to know him, he became part of the brotherhood. He is
right.
our family. And so just a wild thing. Are you working all with males, or are you working with multiple different types of animal?
Um, I'm raising a couple at a time, and they're all males or Dutch
Okay.
Shepherds, which is a male. My preferred breed. That's another thing about dog world. It used to be, it still is to some, like German Shepherd versus Mal. I mean, I've worked enough and been around enough that I can have a healthy argument for why a Mal. But to answer your question, I'm particularly raising and training Mals myself and Dutch Shepherds, but I will work with any breed that somebody else, if somebody else has a dog that is suitable and I'm doing work with them, I don't discriminate against the breed, but by choice, I personally sell and raise Mals or Dutch Shepherds.
Okay. So walk me through a process of, I'm a law enforcement SWAT team. I come to you. I want to hire you and your team to come and help us build our dog program, or what. Walk me through the process of day one. How do you come into that law enforcement group? What are you doing? Like, how does this all work?
Okay, so does that particular law enforcement agency already have a dog, or are you talking about integrating without a dog already?
Let's start with integrating without.
Okay, without, then there's going to be a pretty long road ahead, right? They got to get a dog in that is the right dog, and then they have to get the right handler for that dog. And if he's a tactical team, it's got to be the handler operator, you know, for that dog. And then we got to get the dog integrated with the rest of the team and the stack, and all those environmental issues that come into play there. Clearances are not usually in favorable environments, right? I mean, like sometimes a low light, whatever, that's a whole other thing. Low to no light, is where you're going to be doing most of your dirty work. And the dogs getting there to where they're not just nuking the uncles, off leash, with a dynamic environment with flashbangs going off and maybe some gunfire, that is a building block, right? And they have to have the right blocks in place to be able to build on it. I mean, as far as right people in the stack, the right people that are comfortable with the dogs, because as you know, I mean, some people just are terrified of dogs, and you mentioned earlier, like even the guys from previous command, they weren't dog guys, but they valued the dogs on target so much that they would overlook some incidentals along the way, right? I mean, it just happened. I mean, we asked a lot out of them. So I know it's kind of a long way to answer your question, but you just got to, there is no one right answer, right? I have to fill out the people that I'm working with, what resources I have available to work with them. But the key one start would be get the dog integrated with the team, getting the team comfortable with the dog. I would be cross training everybody in that team because the dog guy doesn't need to be the only guy. And matter of fact, shouldn't be the only guy that knows what to do. We did have cases where on an op that I was on, one of the dog guys got shot, and went down, and the guys closest to him had to grab that dog, and they're in the middle of an engagement, and finish the fight, right?
Yep.
So it needs to be everybody in that team needs to be cross-trained to some extent, on how to medically care for the dog if in the event of an injury or gunshot wound, stop the bleed. I mean, there's a lot of different arms off of that one, right? So the basics would be finding what policies and procedures they have in place and how we can build off it and how we can better serve that particular agency. And depending on the call volume, it's this tactical team. Are they getting call outs once a month? Are they going, I mean, are they getting in shootouts? I mean, kind of like not every tactical team needs to go through all that. That's a lot of money and a lot of commitment, So I'd actually advise those that really don't need it against it,
Hmm.
because it would, why have it just so you have it if you're not going to properly maintain it and not willing to throw in the money and the resources to make it a very viable asset, If not, then comes the liability. You don't want this dog out there that's is drowning your resources, or biting the wrong people or all these other things. So it needs to be a well thought commitment from prospective agencies or jurisdictions. And I'd be honest with them about it. That's where I would advise them what the best answer, in my opinion, would be, not what's the best for my company, right? I mean, I think that'd be doing a disservice to them, So I would take it as it comes, slowly integrate the dog, make sure they got the right people in the right place, the right training, and then start one-man clearances, two-man clearance. You start from small, build it up from there, then turn the lights out. So it's a long game.
What do you look for with a dog handler?
Well, one that isn't just trying to drive around, look cool, and pick up chicks, right? I mean, so because there's a lot of those out there that they wear the schmediums and try to impress everybody. One that's going to put in the work, one that has the love for the animal that it deserves, and is doing it for the right reasons. And usually those guys, you can pick them out. Like not everybody is the right person to be a dog guy, because you're responsible for yourself and your readiness. Now you've got that living animal that depends on you for everything, and they're willing to sacrifice everything for you. So you owe it to them, to do right by them. So it's a commitment, and so you just got to make sure that people are wanting to do it for the right reasons, not because they're getting a little paid 5% more incidental pay for, no, let's face it, no cops out there getting paid what they're worth,
Right.
and we already know that, and they're not doing it because they're getting rich,
Right.
so it's a certain, you know, characteristic they got to inherently have, just the love for the animal, the desire to make it better, to better themselves, to be the asset and not the liability. You can probably, you can. You can talk to somebody for an hour, you probably have an idea whether, I mean, so it's just a matter of
100%.
screening them. Yeah, it's a matter of screening them, just getting their opinions on things, and you can kind of come up with a pretty good preponderance of evidence to make a decision, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and unfortunately, that's where, in my opinion, a lot of the agencies go wrong. Now, they don't have a good screening process in place for their handlers. They sometimes seniority is why they get a dog, and I think that's ridiculous. Personally, I think seniority rank should have some privileges, but I don't think it should be an automatic, right? Not when it comes to, like I said, a living animal, that you're going to depend on. That it's a problem that I saw as a civilian police officer, and training with civilian canine units, and over the years of working in and around um, different jurisdictions or agencies, or three-letter acronyms or whatever. You get the wrong people doing the dog work, and it shows really
Oh,
quickly.
yeah.
It shows really quickly, whether through incidental bites or whether through just you've seen it. So I would go to any agency that was willing to bring me in and willing to take the truth. Because if they bring me in, they're going to get the truth. Good, bad, or indifferent. And that's never going to change with me.
No,
In my
as it
career.
shouldn't, because
No,
you're the expert in this stuff. This is what you've done a whole career. I mean, you were doing the dog handling stuff before it was a thing, before it was like
right.
everybody's got to have a dog now
Yep.
and every team.
Yep.
Um, and another thing too, that I think people need to understand, and I say this more for like all these cats who get out and everybody's got to have a dog after service for their support dog or whatever it is. And I'm like, whatever, you want a dog because dog or man's best friend. I get that, but you got to consistently train them. And what people seem to fail to realize is that if you're a handler, you're a support staff for that dog. And you got to make sure that a dog is functioning and everything's ready to rock and roll to get that dog to go on the objective and actually get the job done. And a lot of guys are not willing to. Like, they start shooting right away. I was like, well, you got a dog right there. I only got a taste of this because our dog handler let me do like the assistant handling just in case he was going down a couple times. And I was like, this is actually really cool just to see that firepower. I was like holding my laser, letting him speaking to Dutch to him. And then all of a sudden he goes to the door and you're like, oh, I don't want to be on the other side of that
Right.
door.
Yep.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But
you nailed it for sure. It is just so many different facets that go into that, and there's so many advantages for having a properly trained team. It really is, I mean, having a dog doesn't belong in every situation, but they can be used a lot more than they are. Like, and I hate to say it, school shootings, the worst, most horrific thing imaginable for all of us, right? And in our country, there's a lot of crap that's going on that we all hate, but the school shootings
Yeah.
hits all of us. I mean, like it infuriates every one of us, and the dog shouldn't be the go-to in those scenarios, but if you have one, he could be the difference, right? I mean, they should be training for, unfortunately, all these crappy things that are happening in our society these days. If there's a way to utilize a dog that saves human lives, I think it's foolish of us not to pursue that.
100%.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that I've thought time and time again about for you guys who actually do this for a living. Sending your dog into any type of scenario, a bite, what have you. I mean, there's got to be this sense of parenting where you're like, I know the dog is capable. They're 100 miles an hour. In fact, in some ways, they're more warriors than we are. But at the same time, they're still my baby, So there's got to be that, like, go get it done. But I'm nervous because I want him to make it through it, as unscathed as possible. It's something I always thought about.
It's true.
I can't
It's true.
imagine. Cannot
It's true.
imagine. It's your
It's true.
family.
Well, I mean, we're not here to talk about past history, but if anybody knows that feeling, it's me. I
I
sent
want to
my
get into
dog.
that. I want to get
Okay.
into that. I want you to share the story, Remco. I want you to get into it all.
I'll give the overview real quick, so not to make too much time. Because people can Google it and pretty get the. I was interviewed post the court martial of Bo Bergdahl for the first time, so I was able to actually talk about it. So there's a longer version of this. We were deployed in 2009, the only Tier 1 unit in the area, when Private Bergdahl walked off his post and deserted on June 30th, 2009. And so we're already in theater. We're getting some briefs, and we know that we got American. We got to get back, and we knew they were going to try to exploit getting him. Got some pretty actionable intel on the night that July 9th, 2009, and it was not favorable conditions. The it was hostage rescue, so it didn't matter, right? So we went out and landed on the X and tried to go get him back, and it turned into I hope this is rated at least R, a shit show. I hope I can say that. It
Say
was a
it.
it was a shit show. Um, we were taking fire before we even got off the helicopter. We were in a firefight coming off. It was a huge, very vast target, and people running around, children, women, a lot of things going on. Um, we had some people maneuvering. We got some feedback from the eyes in the sky. We had some maneuvers, and so I linked up with an element to go out and meet. That's what we did. That we chased squirters and then such. So we went out and got in a couple engagements on the way out to where this guy's position was at. By the time we got out there, our force is down to two plus me and a dog. And we won't go into all the details of that, but we could see the set of guys coming across the poppy field that was not in its harvest, but it was divoted enough where he couldn't make out everything. They were wearing man dresses, so we couldn't ID whether they had weapons. It was just, it was just tying our hands. They took a fighting position and sent the dog out. And right as he got there, odor and engaged, uh, firefight started. Team leader was shot next to me on the right. It was pretty intense. But as all that's going on, I watched Remco go in for the right. I mean, he just crested their hill and was going in for an assault and just took one to the head and came flying back out. So I had to watch the most beautiful and horrific thing. I sent my partner to his known death so that we could live. So yeah, and I wouldn't be here telling the story had that not have happened. So if anybody can relate to the importance of having the dog trained for the worst case scenario, I think I qualify for that one.
Yeah,
So
100%. Remco was issued a medal. Is that right?
yeah, as a matter of fact, he sure was. I got his vest behind me. He was a silver star and a purple heart.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
unbelievable and well deserved. I
yeah.
mean, I'm glad that they started to look at these dogs as teammates and are issuing what they deserve. It's a powerful thing, man, and I can't even imagine that. It's awesome to have a guy like you in that hot seat being able to do this because, again, it goes back to any type of special ops team had to have everything to our advantage to fight an enemy that just, we're on their territory and having
They
to
didn't
deal
have
with them.
rules. Yeah.
Yeah, no rules
Right, right,
whatsoever.
right, right.
Yeah. That's well, thanks for sharing Remco's story, man. And I know we'll get that interview that you did on the whole story, and we'll blast that out as well, so
Okay.
people can
All
hear
right.
more about you and
I'll send you
your
guys the link when I send you some pictures.
awesome.
All right.
Well, we mentioned that you do this like if I was a police team and I hired you to come in, we have no dog program. Other side of the spectrum, I'm a tactical team, law enforcement. We have a dog program. We want you to come in. What would you do from that point to come in and help them build their program up more?
Well, I would need to assess their culture initially, kind of fill out my target audience, because you just can't talk to everybody the same way. You know the deal. I mean, you just can't, right? So, and I know that rings true even in law enforcement. But a lot of the tactical teams are usually the ones you don't have to worry about, hurting feelings or whatever. But nonetheless, I would still kind of just get an idea of what all they've got going on, how big's their team, how many dogs they have, what's their call out, what's their most routine call that they go call outs on, and kind of build up a plan based on what that agency's day to day looks like, or their tactical use looks like. And then I would go do an assessment on the dog. And sadly, as you mentioned earlier, like gunfire around dogs, like that's one thing that some people don't take serious enough. Like you got to be able to move and shoot with your dog, preferably off leash, under control. I mean, they should be at that level by then. And if they're not, then we got a problem. So we got to fix that before we can go forward, right? I've also been on an op where a dog that wasn't great at gunfire after Remco got killed, and it was bad, and it's very important to have a dog that does not become a liability in the middle of a gunfight, so I would make sure the dog's good to go in all those areas. And then I just asked them to show me what they're already utilizing, what movements or not they're doing. I want to see their clearances and how they're already doing it, so I can build off what they're currently doing, or say, oh, no, that's in my opinion wrong. You should maybe think about this, and kind of come with a suggested way to application, with the team. Come and look at the policy and procedures. Try to protect leadership. I retired as a sergeant, so I know a little bit about, and also just from that many years in the military, you understand the chain of command. We got to protect our leaders, make sure that their policy procedures are covering them from all the liabilities, because these days they'll sue a cop just for looking at them wrong, so, and I'm very aware of that. So I want to look at it from an overall perspective, not just from how do I teach them to do clearance with a dog. I need to make sure they're ready to defend that action, if they have to use that dog, and there's some fallout as a result of it. That's what we're doing right now with one of the sheriff's departments that we're working with. We went through all the policy procedures with them, and we're kind of committed to helping them in every way, not just the training of the dog. To be the same there, and check the proficiency level of the operators, their tactical guys, and you know, going back, they all need to be able to operate that dog. They need to know the commands for that dog. They need to know how to take over, and that's one of I mention it again because you'd be surprised how much it's not taken seriously. And as well as I do, man, shit doesn't always go bad, but it damn sure can. And when it does, if you're not prepared to deal with it, then what are you going to do? Then what? I mean, you can't just sit there, look at each other, and hope it works itself out. You got to do something. So, I mean, I just always harp on those worst case scenarios, train for those worst ones, because nothing ever goes as planned ever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
most tactical guys know that, they sat there on hours waiting on a call out or whatever, and then it went from 8 hours of nothing to 5 seconds of madness, the deal. So just gotta get them inoculated, do the stress inoculation, and train very dynamically, with much frustrating, stressful things as I can, just to get them ready for the big show, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful, and that it's sad that a lot of the guys out there that are potentially going to be put in that position haven't taken it serious enough, or haven't been given the right tools to deal with that shit sandwich, right? And I want to try to help out,
Well, that's a big thing you touch on is just because you go through a SWAT program after being a police officer for so long does not mean that you have what it takes to survive a firefight with the mental aptitude, fortitude that you need. So You got to train as much as possible. So when that shit does hit the fan, and if you do a whole career, it absolutely will, you're ready for it to a degree that you can be.
Right.
And you're complex. I mean, it's complex when you start putting an animal into the mix, 100%. No question about it. I mean, there's people who go for bike rides carrying their dog on a leash, and I'm like, you're just a civilian who's got a dog that has no training, is on a leash riding next to your bike, and you wonder why you just ended up in the hospital breaking a collarbone because it just pulled you off your damn bike. It's a
I saw
whole
the cat run up the tree or squirrel, whatever. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell another individual to do something, and you, with training, will get that right. But without the proper, consistent training, just like any other perishable skill, the dog's going to tell you to fuck off, and it's going to do its own thing.
And you got to build up good muscle memory because you know the deal. You know, once the shit hits the fan, you're probably not making all the mental decisions consciously, right? You're resorting to what you've done or not done. You know, so got to build good habits, good muscle memory, good leash manipulation, or good operation of the tools they have on them. You know, it's no different than the things that we went through, right? Training wise, except you've got a four-legged partner now that you can plan for how they're going to respond given the situation, and you only do that through training it. You know, if you don't train it, you have no clue how the dog is going to respond, and then you've got a problem. Now you've got the liability, and now you become part of the problem, right? So,
right. 100%. I'd be a terrible dog handler just because I'd be so damn jealous, because you know how you're with your boys and you're always like, you're at the shooting range and you're just like, I'm going to beat you today, or I'm going to crush you, and I'm shooting way better than you. When you look at a dog athletically, you can't beat them. It is impossible. So I would always be jealous. Like, fuck, I'm already going into this as a deficit, and this dog's going to crush me every which way. That's awesome. So I know you're working on the tactical side, SWATs, and probably federal and civil side of the house for law enforcement, but can any agency contact you through your website and say, we want to work with you, gain your services? Is that how
absolutely.
it works?
Absolutely.
And how are they finding you? Are you just word of mouth right now? Or are you
Well,
pushing
right
word out?
now, so I've got, like you mentioned earlier, I do have some social medias up. I do have a website. I've only been up and running for a few months, so I've got a lot of rooms to improve. We've got the information and contact information as far as how to get a hold of us on the website. We're building up some registration forms and some other forms for some of the classes we got coming up. At the very minimum, my phone number's on there. My email address, mike@setpointk9.com, is easy. I would absolutely be glad to talk to anybody and see how I can help them out. We're also working with some civilians with protection dogs. That's a whole nother challenge, but you know, definitely willing and eager to get involved with some of the right families. And I say some of the right families because not everybody needs to have a protection dog.
You mean like, I want our dog to bite?
Well, that one, you get that all the time. Yeah, you get that all the time because, you know, and then every once in a while you'll find one that actually was a suitable. Yeah, you know, you're right. This dog does have it. Most of the time, it's not just because they have the breed that's been, you know, categorized as a good working dog doesn't make them a good protection dog. So, we have a couple families that we work with currently. One is a female that's got two dogs that used to be a client. Now she's part of our team. She's the exception as far as civilian dog protection dog owners that I've come across. She is willing to put in the work. She'll work harder than most of the guys I know. I mean, she's a worker, and her dogs shows. She's got two mouths, and one of them weighs as much as she does. You know, and so I mean, seriously, you know, and so she's doing all the right things. Willing to put in the work, get dirty. You know, she's self-assesses. She accepts where she can improve, wants to work on it, be better at everything. Those are the qualities that one needs to have to be a good protection dog owner. You can't just buy it one and done. You got to be able to willing to do the maintenance training. You know, it's a commitment. It's forever commitment. From the time the dog becomes part of your family, you're committed to keeping them proficient at their skill. You know, you can't just put him on the couch and feed him Oreos and think that he's going to do his job a year later if something goes sideways and you haven't done anything to prepare for it. I mean, you kind of get what you put into it, right? I mean,
Well, that's the key that you bring up such a valid point here, because, I mean, when you have some of these organizations, these charities that issue service dogs to people after service, there's a requirement for you to get a dog that you have to do X amount of training per week what actually it's per day in order for you to get the dog, and you have to check in and send video and show where you're at currently in the progression of this. That's just a support dog. That is not a working dog.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into this. People all say, I want a protection dog. I want it to be fierce and bite and all this stuff. And they're like, that's seriously dangerous. And if you don't know what the fuck you're doing and are not willing to understand and learn that and then respect that, it ain't for you.
Nope, and you better have a lot of money and some good lawyers, because it's not if you're going to get sued; it's when and for how much, right? I mean, that's the other part of it. If you got a dog like that, you have to understand that that's going to be used against you at some point. Somebody's going to try to take advantage of that, and you have to have that covered. You have to know that going into it, that you're going to need some form of protection, for the dog and for yourself, liability wise, because now you've got a trained weapon.
Yeah.
Oh. And that's another thing. I have talked more people out of getting a protection dog than I have worked, like way more. Like I'm just honestly, why do you want one? Well, I've got a Rottweiler. Well, only Rottweiler's probably already going to protect you as it is. Like,
yeah,
I mean, just so, I mean, I'm not here just to try to scalp people and take money, man. I'm not going to be associated with that. I'll be honest with people, regardless, good, bad, or whatever.
That's legit. I mean, if you really want protection in your household, you can just go find some rattlesnakes outside and put one at each entrance. You're good to go. I mean, all good. It was outside. It's not my problem. So moving into future Setpoint, where you want to take this, because I'm hearing two things here. I'm hearing you're training law enforcement to set up their dog program and or infuse into their dog program based off of your training time in Tier 1 doing this as a handler. On the other side, you have dogs that you're raising from birth. Is your goal to start breeding more dogs so that you can do both sides, or is this just a one little piece right now?
Well, my long-term goal would be to be self-sufficient and profitable enough to be able to have my own facility, to be able to have my own kennels. One of my guys that I work with now is going to vet tech school because he wants to, and we were talking about it. Like it would make sense. Like if we had our own kind of facility, that I'm not trying to train everybody's pets, but I would have enough business going where I can maybe do some breeding. I don't want to become a breeder. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I do have a couple of really good dogs that I would like to have a litter from, just because they're that good, and it'd be foolish not to. Because the downside is, if you don't know the mom and dad, then you pay a certain amount of money for a puppy, and that's still an unknown. Like you don't know until they're a certain age, so it's a gamble either way. I'd rather make it more favorable for success if I have control of all the variables. I know the mother, the father, I know everything about them. I raise them in an environment that makes them more likely to be successful, developing them. I'd like to have a facility where I can develop puppies, for working purposes, but just on a smaller level. I'm not trying to become, I don't care if everybody in the country knows my company name, or I'm not, it's not what I'm shooting for, but I just want it to be one that people that want to work with me because of our reputation and for the quality of work that we provide, and the caliber of work that we provide. So we're doing some of the just civilian trainers too. I mean, it's just some human training. Mentioned some of the guys I have working on my team that are better than me at that part of it. And so we're going to offer some training just for tactical teams without dogs, like hostage rescue, some clearance and stuff. That's to be a part of it too.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got that going on. First one will be September this year in Ohio area. Got a couple of guys up there that are civilian SWAT canine guys that are part of the team. And that'll be our first one. So I want a facility because I want to be able to have my own place with my own dogs, and I want a place to train them, have all the things I need right there in one area as far as environmental, all the things that I need to go do on my own now, and have to go out and try to find places to train, all that, which I still would, but I'd like to have a lot more consolidated area. So that's a long term, because I have bike tables and stuff that I got in the garage in my friend's house. I mean, we're really building something out of nothing. Like we're using our garages, and I mean, every good success story started somewhere like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and so that's where I'm at right now. So the facility be able to help take care of where everybody's not having a house. Like right now, I got a buddy that's got like 4 dogs in his house. I'm living in an apartment. I've got one with me because I can't have any more than that. I mean, there's only that is only sustainable for so long, right?
Yeah.
So that's the
But
long-term goal, just for everybody's sanity too.
Well, but you're sitting in an incredible position because we can always figure out how to build the infrastructure, get you the ranch, get the training grounds, all that stuff. What you cannot do is fast track you to the instruction and the background that you have in this world and environment. So you've already got the hard stuff knocked out. Putting the infrastructure together to actually get this place where you call a home base, that's easy, and you'll absolutely have that. And that's what I want everybody to hear here today is, one, if you're law enforcement, you're in the tactical side of the house, reach out to these guys. We're going to put their link in bio, all that stuff up, so you can actually get in contact with Mike. But reach out to them for your training. Make sure that this is a part of your tactical team. If you don't have one, let Mike come out and assess what you've got going on and help you and infuse you with what you need. Law enforcement need more help than anybody right now on the tactical side, with canines, with everything. And so if you are in law enforcement, reach out to Mike. If you are interested in starting a dog program, reach out to Mike, and we'll talk about charity stuff in the future to actually help you infuse some capital into what you're doing to grow this brand to where you want it to be. I love the idea that you don't have this grandiose plan of wanting to build this thing up to being the number one nationwide global size, because you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Any smart business owner would be growing the way that you can grow with the speed that you can grow. Because there's one thing, like, I can go and create a product and then sell the product. To train a canine takes time, long time. And so you can't just do it like that, right? And so, but it also helps you build these relationships. What I love about what you're doing, though, is you're not just coming in and helping them build their dog program to where it needs to be, but you're also infusing the tactical side of the house for the shooters external to dogs, which is also an environment they need massive help on.
Right.
That's a huge added bonus. And I don't know any other handlers out there who are, or handler companies that say they train dogs or whatever, that are doing that side of the house. So that's really, really cool. And then I don't know all your cadre, but I know some, and unbelievable people.
Yeah.
So it's,
I'm really
awesome.
fortunate. I'm really fortunate to have the group that I have. And I think that's probably what makes us the strongest. Really solid core group of guys that just are studs. And I'm not talking about myself, because I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not. I'm talking about, I got some real talent in my group, and I'm honored to work with them. Just like I was before, I'm honored to still be working with them, and I look forward to putting on some stuff that people are like, okay, I get that. Like, that made sense. And I'm glad we did that. Or shit, I didn't know that we should have been doing this. Or I didn't know that was an option. I mean, I look forward to those things. I look forward to the fellowship with them as well.
Yeah. What have we not covered about your company?
I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, started in a garage. I'm still in a garage, but it's only a few months into it, right? I mean, we're getting shirts and stuff made. We're growing as we can, just to try to get a brand out there, which I'm horrible at. By the way, everybody that knows me knows that I'm absolutely horrible at social media, branding. All these things. But I have good people that are trying to help me. I'll get better. So just talking right now on a podcast is not my comfort zone at all. Those that know me, really know that they've always pushed me to, like, I'm going to have to start doing more of this kind of stuff. And I get it. I do need to get better at it, but I could talk about dogs all day, though. That's the one thing that makes this bearable, is especially when I'm talking about my dog, that, there's a reason I'm here, And so which it all kind of correlates. He's tied into it because he has to be, he's the big driving factor for me. I owe it to the dogs out there that are not the volunteers, right? We're the volunteers. They're on off the ride. We're volunteering to go into that house, and we're volunteering to go take that risk. They're just going with us because they want to make us happy.
Right.
We owe it to them to prepare them the best we can for it,
I'm going to tell you what, right now, I'm going to go home tonight and tell my wife we're buying a dog. Just period. Like, you got me so fired up. Like, we've been trying to hold out, because that's, even just having a generic pet of a dog is a lot of effort, work, when we have 2 young kids, and we're like, we're going to bypass this as long as we can. But now I'm going home tonight and tell her, hey, we're getting a dog, and it's going to bite, and it's going to do backflip. I'm kidding.
All right. So I'm sorry to the wife already.
Well, I want to go back to where we started off and flip the script on you one more time. And I always like to end this thing with something that's meaningful from you. And I always say, who is your hero and why?
I mean, growing up, it was Tasmanian Devil. No real good reason, but now I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a hard one because I think we've already talked about who my hero is. It kind of has to be,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the hero doesn't have to be a human, right? My hero is Remco. It 100% is. Everything that happened that night. All the things that could have gone wrong, that should have gone wrong, and I shouldn't be here. Billis don't bend. But they did that night. It seems to me. I mean, if you go back and read the interview, I mean, I dive into that a little bit more. And I think Brunko had an intuitive ability to know that that was his last dig. Like I swear it, because the way he acted right as I was sitting them, they stopped, looked at me all calm. It was something he had never done, and it just mind blowing to me to this day. And I remember that as vividly as I remember anything. And I'm getting old. My memory kind of sucks, but that is seared in my memory. And so therefore he has to be my hero.
That's a beautiful hero, man. Tell us a story of Remco. Besides that one, tell us a short story about.
Here's a good one with Will. Will was there for this one. We were out training out in the middle of fucking nowhere, in this building that had all these, like every other warehouse would have paint cans and all these other things laying around. Well, Remco, being the genius he was, went and grabbed an aerosol paint can. And I look at him like, oh no. I'm like, Lowe's trying to get him to let go. No, you see his eyes kind of go limbic. He's like, he just shakes and crushes it. Now he's got paint in his mouth. All right, but now we got a medical problem. And now we got this dumbass that just crushed this metal can with aerosol can with paint in it. And we're out. We're nowhere near a vet or a medical facility. So we went and got some vinegar, and poor guy had to just cough it and throw it all up. And so I remember Will and I just sitting there going, all right, buddy, here you go. Because we gave him the vinegar and all of a sudden, he's just throwing it up. Dumbass didn't learn though. He still wouldn't chase cans afterwards. But he was just a clown, man. He just had to be doing something. Because he wasn't doing something productive, he was going to find something to do that definitely was not productive. And so this kind of goes back to what we touched on earlier. Like we get these dogs with these drives. We want them to go to these really cool, dangerous things. Well, they don't just turn that off, right? And, maybe they do when they get older in the career, they kind of get it. But the younger ones, I mean, they're like coming out of training, like you're ready to go out and save the world. You're ready to go, just well, that's them 24/7, right? Yeah, and they're gonna get, and they have the mentality of a 2-year-old. So that's why the one I got right now is wearing that kennel. And he's not walking around my apartment chewing you up, unless I'm there watching him. He's in that kennel because I'm not. He's a great dog, but no, I mean he's already proven that he will chew something up in a second. So you got to take the good with the bad, right? I mean, so it's a give and take.
We had a actual working dog stay with us for 24 hours to help a friend out when he was moving. And we were living in a loft, and I'm like, do I need to know anything? He's like,
what could go wrong?
Right. Well, I'm like, dude, like, I understand nothing. So he's like, you're going to be fine. So we spent like a half a day with the dog getting to know me and just learning the dog and just letting him get to know me and kind of build that little bit of a relationship so he can stay with us. And it was a great, great dog. And he works with him every single day. So it's like, he's doing what he needs to be doing. But now he's at my house. We get ready to go to bed. About 4 a.m, my wife turns over to me and she's like, does this dog ever stop fucking moving? It was always doing something. It was like sitting on this bed, then it was looking out the window and it was moving around. You hear the paws and you're like, geez, dude, like chill.
Yeah, exactly. That's this one I got now. I mean, I'm a little 1-bedroom apartment. I'll be watching TV and he just walks and circles around. He walks to the kitchen, walks back to me, just like it just does not chill. They will not, and so that's the downside, right? I mean, that's just, it's a funny point, but it's also very valid. I mean, people that don't really know that, you can hear him now. He's digging in the fucking kennel. Ass clown. But, I mean, yeah, it definitely is something that people need to know what they're getting, right? That part of it, right? I mean, you get a dog that's that driven and that energetic. Well, they don't just turn it off. You want to at least try to tire them out and give yourself a chance to get some good night's sleep, right? I mean, yeah, it's a
Oh,
commitment for sure. So I don't know. The wife might be ready for you to go get a dog just yet.
well, the two things that's funny. I always pose this to like all the dog handlers that I know, and it's not many, but I always say the joke, like, if you're a real handler and teacher, let me send you a husky and see what you can do.
Ugh.
Fucking nightmare dogs.
Yeah, loud vocals, screaming. Yeah, drama
Hyper.
queens.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. No, I mean, it's just, and my wife and I both like big dogs. We don't want these little shits. I mean, they might be cute for some people, but not for us. Like we used to have a Beauceron. Are you familiar with that dog?
Yeah.
And it immediately, this is the natural thing why I love this big dog. So it would protect my wife with zero training.
Right.
We got it. It was 6 months old, and I thought, okay, it's still a puppy. This damn thing was over 100 pounds already. It was huge, right? And every time she'd be walking the dog, if somebody would be walking near her, it would immediately back its butt up to her front, and it would put one of its paws on her foot. And I'm like, that is unbelievable that it naturally took on this ownership of protection.
Right.
And then it growled at me one time. I was like, "Oh hell no, you didn't."
Yeah, you gotta nip that one in the bud. Yeah, they're pack animals. They need to know that they're not alpha ever.
Yeah.
Because then you got a problem. But I'm with you. I've never owned personally a Mal as a pet.
Got it.
I like Rottweilers. I like Bull Mastiffs. I've had several of those bigger breed. And then my oldest son has a Frenchie. Oh God, I love that little dog. I mean, that's the coolest little useless dog in the world. I mean, you can't be around him for 5 minutes without laughing at him for something. Like it's just medicinal having him in the room.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, so as far as little dogs go, that'd be the only little dog I would personally have. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not complete unless I have a dog to interact with, right? So, but now doing this, I'm in no shortage of that. So I don't have time for a pet. I mean, I'm pretty busy as it is. As you know, we've got dog kennels stacked up in all my boys' house. I wouldn't even feel right saying I'm going to get a pet right now when we're all just we're coughing dog hair, we're breathing dog hair. Always. So one day, I'll probably have a little Frenchie and a big old bull mastiff run around the house and just sit back and laugh at them. But,
That's legit. Well, I'm super, super grateful for you being on the show and spending time with us, man, and telling your story here. It's a short story. And I want everybody to go check him out, check out what he's got going on. So that's setpointk9.com with Michael Toussaint, a.k.a. Mike. So go check him out. Give him a follow on social media. Go to his website. And if you are in law enforcement or attached to law enforcement or know a law enforcement agency near you that is in need of a dog program or has one that needs some training, reach out to him today and help him out because he's sure going to help you out. So thanks for being on, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I look forward to our lunch.
Yeah, man. We're going to do it.
Frogman.